Hi, Polly from the FitMumFormula.com here, and I've been asked, how do you know if you have a food intolerance? Now, people will typically report that they think they've got a food intolerance because they're having some kind of undesirable reaction or a feeling. Now, it could be a digestive problem, maybe it's bloating or gas or indigestion, or it could be something else as well. Remember, people have, sometimes food intolerances can result in reactions that aren't actually anything to do with the tummy. For example, asthma and other autoimmune conditions. It could be migraines and headaches. It could just be lack of energy, poor recovery after exercise. The possibilities are pretty endless. So the thing is that it's quite hard to detect whether it's going to be a food that's causing that, because of course all of these things could be triggered by all sorts of other things. If you're feeling low on energy, maybe you've been a bit under the weather, maybe you haven't slept as well. If you've got poor digestion, it could be a bacterial infection or a yeast infection. It could be that you've just eaten something a little bit funny. Maybe you even just ate your last meal a bit too quickly, so it might not be the food actually itself that's causing the problem. However, if you do suspect that a food is causing you a problem, here is what you do. What you don't do is go and splash out hundreds of pounds on tests. Now, there are many different tests available. They have different ways of testing. Some of them are blood tests, some of them are stool tests and urine tests. Some of them do this kind of electromagnetic thing on your skin. Some of them use just written questionnaires. There's many different ways, but none of them have been 100% proven to be accurate yet. Maybe, but in a few years we will have something that categorically is extremely accurate. But right now, the results that come back from these things are so hit and miss. One person can send off their blood or their stool to 5 different companies on the same day, and they will get different results from them. So still to this day, at the time of filming this, the best way to establish whether you have a problem with a particular food is through an elimination diet. How do you do an elimination diet? What you do is you take one suspect food at a time. Why one? Well, if you eliminate 3, you feel better. How do you know which one it is that's been causing the problem, and by eliminating it, which one's made you feel better? So you take one food at a time, and when I say food, I mean food group as well. So if you think dairy is a problem, you not only have to eliminate milk, but you also have to eliminate cheese, yogurt, butter, ice cream, anything with dairy in it. Now, with some things, it's going to take a bit of label reading as well, especially if you buy packaged and processed foods, because sometimes, even if it's not a main ingredient, certain ingredients can be used as fillers, bulkers, creamers, and that kind of thing. So if you buy packaged foods, things that aren't like a whole natural food in itself, read the labels and make sure you're not having any of whatever it is you're cutting out for 30 days. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to keep a diary of your symptoms and see how you feel over those 30 days. At the end of those 30 days, you're going to reintroduce the suspect food in a large enough amount to potentially provoke a reaction. So if it was dairy, again, that example, then you wouldn't just have a splash of milk in your tea. You'd have an entire glass of milk or a whole pot of yogurt or something like that, enough. And then you're going to assess how you feel and your reactions and your symptoms for 3 days, because it can be a delayed reaction. Usually if it's a severe allergy, and to be honest, if you have a severe allergy, you probably know about it because the reactions are severe and they usually come on immediately. The difference between an allergy and intolerance is basically the way that your body reacts, and there's different ways within your body that you can have a reaction. And there's to get complicated, there IgE, IgA, IgG, IG. Basically, you don't need to know that. All you need to know is that there's different ways to have a reaction to something. So when somebody has a peanut allergy, that's an actual allergy. It's very severe. The reaction will come on suddenly and be severe. It will be the anaphylactic shock. So intolerance is a lot more difficult to determine if you've got it, because the symptoms tend to come on a lot more slowly, and they're often milder as well, and they overlap with other things. It's quite hard to tell. So that's why you need to really pay a little bit of attention and keep a diary of how you're feeling, and keep a food diary as well. Now, if you don't have a problem with that food after reintroducing it, great. Possibly it wasn't a food intolerance, or it might have been something else. So we repeat the process. And there are some more common ones. Gluten and dairy are two of the most common. Nuts, eggs, shellfish, soy and corn, they're all the most problematic. They're the most likely culprits. However, hypothetically, you could be intolerant or allergic to anything really. As an example, I have an intolerance to a group of foods called nightshades. Not everybody knows what nightshades are, but they're a group of foods that encompass tomatoes, peppers, all sorts of peppers, so including chili and paprika, aubergines, white potatoes, not sweet potatoes, sweet potatoes is fine, so parsnips, but not white potatoes, goji berries, and those little yellow things that sound like an STD. I can't remember what they're called. Anyway, if I eat those foods, then I get extremely bloated, and chances are I'll have an asthma attack as well. But things like dairy and gluten, I'm fine with, in not excessive amounts. But then, to be honest, nobody is okay on any food in excessive amounts. Nothing's supposed to be eaten in enormous unreasonable amounts. So that's how you determine, until we get some better tests in place, until something is developed, that is how you determine whether you have a food intolerance. Now, another side note, if you do have some sort of underlying infection, that might make you react to foods even though it's not the food itself, because it makes you have a more sensitive tummy. So I had IBS. IBS is an umbrella term for you've got tummy problems. So you could say I didn't really have IBS. That's just what it was called. I got tests done, and I was reacting to all sorts of foods. I had no idea what it was, because I seemed to be constantly bloated, constantly had tummy problems the whole time. And certain foods triggered it more than others. Definitely the nightshades, that's an ongoing one. But some things came up some days and not other days, and it was really hard to determine. And I was basically reacting to lots of different things that I was eating and drinking. So I got some tests done, and it came back with having various infections and gut problems that came as a result of low immunity from, well, who knows why it got there, but like any kind of illness or a bacterial infection, sometimes they get there. So needless to say, I got those cleared up. I went through protocols to clear out all the bad stuff, repopulate with all the good stuff, got my gut back in working order, and lo and behold, I was no longer reacting to the foods that were causing a problem previously. So it wasn't the foods themselves that were the problem, it was the state of my gut that's the problem. And you can see why food intolerances are so difficult to discover, to determine whether you have them. But I just want to give you all that information so that you don't start jumping to conclusions going, I've got a problem with this, I've got a problem with that, should I cut out this, how do I know I've got the problem? It's very hard to determine, but if you can have all the information that I can give you, that will hopefully steer you in the direction. If you really, really do think you've got a problem, either with your gut or a food, you can either go down the route of an elimination diet to see if it's a food that's a problem, or you can get your gut tested for things like bacterial and yeast infections and see if that's causing you a problem as well. So I think that's it. I think I've covered everything. I'm afraid, I'm sorry, I can't just say, yeah, it's easy. If you do this, then you'll figure out, just cut out that food and it's just easy. It's quite complicated, and that's why so many people have trouble figuring out, and sometimes this goes on for months, if not years, of tummy troubles or other things like migraines before they actually find an answer and they figure out what the problem is, because it's very difficult to figure it out and diagnose. But I hope that's been helpful. I hope that's given you some direction, and I hope it's given you some clarity on where to go. And I hope if you are having problems, either with your gut or with certain foods, that you come to some sort of resolution. If you've got any questions about it or any advice, please do come to me and ask polly@thefitmumformula.com, and I will point you in the right direction. I know some great doctors who can help, and I know a little bit about the different types of foods, and if it turns out you can't eat something, what kind of things to have instead as well. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Polly at thefitmumformula.com, and please share this if you know somebody who's got a problem or currently trying to go through this process. Please share this video with them, and comment below if you've got any questions. I really appreciate your feedback, and I hope you all have a lovely day.